In 1871, a single man unified 39 separate German states into one of the most powerful nations in the history of the world in less than 10 years. And he did it not through speeches or diplomacy alone. He did it through 3 calculated wars, fought back to back, each one engineered with cold surgical precision. This wasn't an accident of history. This was strategy. This was power politics at its most ruthless, and the consequences reshaped the entire planet. So here's the question that should keep you watching. How does a collection of weak, divided states transform into a global military superpower in under a decade? What you're about to learn isn't just a history lesson. It's a blueprint. A case study in how geopolitical dominance is engineered from the ground up. Because the forces that unified Germany in the 19th century, they're still shaping Europe today. From NATO's eastern flank to Germany's role as the EU's economic anchor, it all traces back to what happened between 1864 and 1871. We're going to break this down. The fractured landscape before unification, the man who made it happen, the 3 wars that sealed it, and the global shockwave that followed. If you want to understand modern Europe and modern power politics, this is where you start. Hit subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Now let's get into it. Here's something most people don't realize. Before 1871, there was no Germany. There were kingdoms, duchies, free cities, principalities. 39 of them loosely bound together under what historians call the German Confederation, a political arrangement so weak it could barely agree on a postal service, let alone a military strategy. This patchwork was the deliberate creation of the Congress of Vienna in 1815 when European powers, Britain, Austria, Russia, France, sat down after the Napoleonic Wars and essentially said, "We never want a unified, powerful German state threatening the balance of power again." And it worked. For a while. But 2 states inside that confederation were growing fast. Austria, the traditional heavyweight, the old Habsburg Empire, and Prussia, a militarized kingdom in the north, leaner, newer, and hungry. Prussia had something Austria didn't. A modernizing economy, a rapidly expanding railway network, which defense analysts consistently identify as the era's most critical military logistics asset, and a professional army built on discipline and innovation. The stage was set. All it needed was one man to light the fuse. Otto von Bismarck became Prussia's minister-president in 1862, and within 9 years he had done what centuries of German rulers could not. Bismarck famously declared that the great questions of the day would not be solved by speeches and majority votes, but by iron and blood. And he meant it. But here's what most people miss. Bismarck wasn't a warmonger. He was a chess player. He never started a war he didn't already know how to finish. His strategy had 3 core pillars. First, isolate your enemy diplomatically before you strike militarily. Make sure they have no allies when the shooting starts. Second, manufacture a legitimate justification. Every war Bismarck fought looked, on the surface, like someone else started it. Third, win fast, win decisively, then offer reasonable peace terms so you don't create a permanent enemy. Defense historians refer to this as the Bismarckian model of limited war: use force precisely, achieve political objectives, then stop. Sound familiar? Military strategists still study this playbook today. So how exactly did Bismarck unify Germany? 3 wars. Rapid, deliberate, each one building on the last. War I, Denmark, 1864. The target? 2 small duchies, Schleswig and Holstein, technically under Danish rule but with significant German-speaking populations. Bismarck used a disputed succession crisis as the legal pretext. He pulled Austria into an alliance to fight Denmark, making it look like a joint Germanic cause rather than Prussian expansion. Denmark was defeated in months. But this war wasn't really about Denmark. It was about testing the Prussian military machine and setting a trap for Austria. War II, Austria, 1866. After Denmark, Prussia and Austria began quarreling over how to administer the conquered territories. Bismarck had engineered this dispute. He needed a pretext to fight Austria to settle once and for all which power would lead the German states. The decisive engagement came at the Battle of Negritz in July 1866. Prussia deployed the needle gun, a breech-loading rifle that could be fired from a prone position, dramatically increasing rate of fire compared to Austria's muzzleloaders. In military terms, this was a force multiplier, a technology that allowed smaller units to produce disproportionate firepower. Prussia won in 7 weeks. The war is literally called the 7 Weeks' War. And here's the key insight: Bismarck refused to humiliate Austria after the victory. No occupation, no crushing reparations. Because he didn't want Austria as a permanent enemy, he wanted Austria out of German politics. The result? Austria was excluded from the new North German Confederation, and Prussia was now the undisputed leader of the German states. War III, France, 1870. The southern German states, Bavaria, Baden, Württemberg, were still not part of Prussia's confederation. They were Catholic, conservative, and suspicious of Protestant Prussia. Bismarck needed something to pull them in. Something emotional. Something that would make them feel German first and regional second. He found it in France. Using a diplomatic dispute over the Spanish throne, the Ems Dispatch, a telegram Bismarck edited and released to the press to deliberately provoke French outrage, he baited France into declaring war on Prussia first. Napoleon III walked straight into the trap. The southern German states flooded to Prussia's side out of nationalist fury. The Prussian military, now commanding a coalition force, crushed France with terrifying speed. By September 1870, Napoleon III himself was captured at the Battle of Sedan. By January 1871, in the Hall of Mirrors at Versailles, on conquered French soil, the German Empire was proclaimed. This is the moment that changed everything. Here's what most history books gloss over. The proclamation of the German Empire at Versailles was not just symbolic. It was a psychological weapon aimed directly at France. Bismarck chose that location deliberately. Proclaiming a rival empire inside the most famous palace in France, in the middle of a war France was losing, it was a message that would burn in French national memory for 4 decades. And that wound, that humiliation, would be a primary driver of French war aims in 1914. Think about that. The unification of Germany in 1871 didn't just create a new power, it planted the seed of World War I. Defense analysts and historians argue that without the conditions created by German unification, the arms race it triggered, the alliance systems it forced Europe to build, the Franco-German rivalry it made inevitable, the catastrophic wars of the 20th century may have unfolded very differently. Bismarck unified Germany in a decade, and the world spent the next 75 years dealing with the consequences. So let's bring this together. 3 key takeaways. 1. German unification was not inevitable. It was engineered by one man using a precise combination of diplomatic isolation, military technology, and strategic restraint. 2. Bismarck's model of limited war, clear objectives, decisive force, reasonable peace remains one of the most studied frameworks in military strategy to this day. 3. The unification of Germany didn't end a conflict. It began one. The geopolitical tremors from 1871 rippled forward into 2 world wars and reshaped the entire 20th century. Here's the question I want to leave you with, and I want your take in the comments. If Bismarck had chosen a different location to proclaim the German Empire anywhere other than Versailles, does World War I still happen? Drop your answer below. Seriously, I read every comment. If this kind of deep geopolitical analysis is what you're here for, like this video, it genuinely helps the channel grow. And subscribe so you catch the next one.